Hello, Rob with Van Compass here, and we're going to do a kind of follow-up video of this transit trail now that we're pretty much completed with everything that we wanted to get done on it. So, we got our topo kit installed. You know, this is our standard 2-inch lift topo kit. And the way we achieve our 2 inches of lift with our topo kit is we get 1.25 inches of lift out of our coil spring, and then we have a 3/4 inch strut spacer that bolts on top that corrects the camber for 2 inches of total lift. The trail was a little unique in that it already had a strut spacer on it because everything, like I said in our last video, everything has come down, you know, I think it's 2 3/8 of an inch. Everything has come down that far. So they got a strut spacer installed on top of the strut hat, 2 3/8 of an inch high, with camber correction built into it. Now, we used to make a kit similar to this, where we would drop the suspension subframe, and we did a 2.5 inch subframe drop. We dropped a 2.5, and we did a 2.5 inch strut spacer. Now, what's unique about the Transit, or not really unique, but something about the Transit, is where the strut attaches to the vehicle, it's not flat. Okay, it's not like this. So when you drop everything down 2 inches, we have to build some camber correction into it because it's actually angled like that. So when we drop it down, if we just make our strut spacer straight, it comes out like that, and it messes with gives the vehicle positive camber. The top of the tires are going to be sticking out. You don't get that from the front. We have to make our strut spacer come down when we were doing our 2.5 inch lift. It came down 2.5 inches, but also to come in so that this bolt-in points were in exactly the same location. Now, there's a problem that happens when you do that, and the trail had this problem. The inner fender well, the inner fender liner, part of the chassis, it's not just straight. It kind of bumps out, and sometimes you run into an interference problem with the coil. Because we have to move the top of the strut inboarded as it comes down, there'll be an interference problem here with the sheet metal, the inner structure of the coil bucket. Now, this is really thin sheet metal. This had that problem, and to be brutally honest, it looks like the Ford Transit Trail had the problem as well, because typically this is not spray painted black like this. I didn't do this. You can see this was done actually before they put some bolts in. And I noticed some hammer marks already from where they kind of massaged, we're going to use that word, massaged the inner fender well. Sorry, it's not a liner. This is a liner. It's an inner fender well. So, I mean, they hit it with a hammer. You smack it to get a little more clearance. It's thin sheet metal. You're not structurally causing a problem. But this van already had that done because of the nature of this lift kit. When it comes down, you have to move the top of the strut in to keep your camber correct. There's no camber adjustment on a Transit. It doesn't exist. The only alignment capability you have on a Transit is alignment of toe. That's it. Ford says there's a little bit of adjustment with caster and camber by loosening the subframe and moving it. It doesn't really exist. There's very little movement. So, if you have a Transit trail and you want to get more lift out of it and you want to use our topo kit, be prepared to have to hammer that inner fender well to get clearance to the coil. Now, one side of the van was mostly totally fine. I just had to do a little bit with a pry bar to get just a tiny bit of clearance between the coil and contacting the chassis. And this all occurs at full droop when the suspension's unloaded. Passenger side, the contact was worse. So I actually had to blow the whole front of the van back apart, get the strut out, and be able to kind of get better leverage and use a bigger hammer to clearance the inner fender. Put it all back together, double check steering, just basically turning the knuckle, full lock before hooking up the tie rod. Once clearance is good, then call it good. You can't even, if I didn't tell you this, you would never know. This looks great. It's all smooth. It's painted. It's something that the trail already had done, looked like. We already had a coil contact issue. They probably discovered that when they did this lift kit on the prototype, that, this is part of the process. You have to, hammer the shit out of the metal, out of the sheet metal, to get it to clear. It doesn't take much. It's paper thin sheet metal. You're not hurting anything structurally by moving it. And we're talking about, it's not a lot, but it's just there's certain contact points because of the way that it's designed with the drop and then having to move the top of the strut inboard to keep your camber correct, to keep alignment correct so you don't kill your tires. It's the nature of this kit. So other than that, install is great. Standard topo kit. The van sat. We put it together, just did the front, sat it on the ground, came up exactly 2 inches. Stance was great. Transits have a fairly heavy rake from the factory, nose down rake, and the trail is no different. So when we came up 2 inches, we lost that rake, and this is an empty van. So we went from having about, I think it was like 2 3/4 of an inch of rake to basically 3/4 of an inch of rake. It might have been less than that. I think it was only ended up with like a 1/2 inch of rake. So this van's empty. It's gonna get a build out happening. So we'll move to the rear and show you what we did to the rear to complement the 2 inches of front lift. Got a tire on right now, so it's a little hard to see, but we went with we kept everything that was trail, but then put our 3-leaf mini pack on it. This is a good angle from here. So it's got our 3-leaf pack on it. This isn't going to be a crazy heavy build. He'll be running around probably just under GVW. I think he was shooting for like 8,500. Put our 3052 Falcon adjustable rear shocks set in the lightest setting because right now it's an empty van, and then as he adds weight he can unbolt the lower mount, rotate the SB2, and then it's a completely different damper. Took off those chintzy little Transit Trail extension brackets that don't give you any ground clearance, put ours on. These are our 3022s, simple bolt on, super clean, and then put on our diff skid. And that's basically the rear of the van. So this thing's ready to rock on the rear. So it should ride a lot nicer and be ready for the added weight once he gets there. So the front, we were gonna do a winch mount. It really doesn't work out without a kind of full redesign of the winch mount due to the way the subframe is dropped. So spoke with the customer, was cool with it. We ended up just doing toe points. So toe point installed exactly the same as that you normally would. Skid plate was a little different. So this is our standard skid plate. It's not a trail specific skid plate. The issue was all of this additional, the appearance package that, drops everything down 2 3/8 of an inch. Required additional trimming. So we actually had to, we lost the attachment point that this front center piece was bolted to. So once that attachment point was gone, we needed to solve securing it. It was already falling off. The glue didn't hold up top here anyway, so we just drilled 2 little holes, nut inserted it up top here, and then just had to do some trimming of it all to get it to clear. And now it actually has a real skid plate protecting the intercooler, not a piece of plastic, which is all that it came with, was a piece of plastic. We did something really unique and powder coated these. Just looks a little cleaner. That's about it. The one thing, if you're going to be doing any kind of front end additions on a trail and where the bumper needs to come off, the front fender flares are an absolute nightmare to pull off. They're glued. You can see remnants of it. I haven't finished cleaning it up, but they used a very powerful double-sided tape, and they did it the whole length of the wheel arch. Is a nightmare to pull off. So just a heads up, if you're doing it, be super careful. It's not fun. My hands were hurting for 2 days trying to get those off. But got them off, didn't damage anything. They're going to be going back on here in a minute once we do a final test drive. And that's about it. So look at our website. We'll have some more trail specific instructions, potentially a trail section we'll see. That really just kind of highlights the specific parts that we make that fit the trail chassis. That's about it. Check out vancompass.com for more information.